listening to part 34 of our series, 7 Medicines, The Wise Woman Way with Susan Wade at Time Monk Radio. Hello, Susan. Welcome back to Time Monk Radio.
Hi, Gemini. How you doing?
I am well. How has your week been?
Oh, my week has been wonderful. Let's see. We must be up to just about the time of Hearts and Flowers, my second favorite week of the year. February is always a wonderful month for me because I get to celebrate my birthday and I get to celebrate Valentine's Day, and I always love to celebrate love. And this year, it's very special for me because it's my 70th birthday.
Oh, gosh.
And my daughter's 50th birthday.
Wow. Happy birthday to you both.
Yeah. So it's our 50-70 year. And probably by the time you hear this, I will have already celebrated my birthday. And I've invited anybody who wants to, and that's everybody who reads my e-zine or is connected to me through Facebook, to join me in Kingston at a wonderful buffet and have a meal on me. And there's further information at wisewomanmentor.com. If it's not past the 8th of February, then it might not be too late. And then possibly, if you want to come on down to Costa Rica, where I'll be teaching in March near the time of my daughter's birthday. And last week we were talking about thermal spas and hydrotherapy and using hot water and cold water. And the EDGE conference, where I'm going to be teaching in March, where we're going to be having part 2 of the 70-50 birthday party, is at Thermales de Bosque in Costa Rica, a wonderful, wonderful thermal spa. And it reminds me very much of the early Brighton Bush herbal conferences. And Brighton Bush in Oregon is also at Hot Springs. And so the herbal conferences with the lots of naked people sitting in saunas and hot springs talking about herbs.
Doesn't that sound fun?
I don't suppose that's how the herbal conferences are in Arkansas.
No. I don't go to too many of those kind of conferences in the States at all, actually.
Yes, my dear friend Zsuzsanna of Budapest several times has run a course where she takes women to her home in Hungary and takes them to the spas in Hungary.
That sounds like a lot of fun, actually.
To the healing waters, right?
Yes.
Where you go and sit in the healing waters. Yes, wouldn't that be, quite the trip to create for oneself, to go to healing waters in as many countries as possible?
Oh, that would be an interesting trip, wouldn't it?
It would, yes.
Yeah, I would enjoy that.
Me too. So we move from hydrotherapy, which is an alternative medicine that we talked about last week in the Fifth River, to chiropractic. And I would guess that virtually every American has heard of chiropractic. I don't know how many people have actually been to a chiropractor. I'm sure we could just, look that up and find out how many Americans have actually visited a chiropractor, but I suspect that everyone has heard about chiropractic. It was one of the first alternative medicines that I knew about after herbal medicine. Herbal medicine was just so, right there and in my kitchen and so obvious. But chiropractic was not so obvious. If I wanted to use herbs, I could read about the herbs and I could buy the herbs and then I could use the herbs. But if I wanted to find out about chiropractic, I had to go to a chiropractor. So I did indeed, because I was interested, read a little bit about chiropractic and discovered that it's a fairly new kind of idea, and that the idea is that the bones of the spine, the vertebrae, and the little soft pieces in between the vertebrae, the discs, which are there for cushioning, are supposed to be stacked up evenly. The way that somebody explained it to me was to show me pieces of paper, the number of pieces of paper equivalent to the number of vertebrae. And she showed me this stack of paper, and it wasn't quite straight. There were little corners sticking out here and there. And she said, this is how a person's spine usually looks, from sitting weird or walking weird or standing weird or the work that they do or sleeping on a bed that's too soft or too hard or whatever. And then she picked up the papers, and she did that thing we all do with the papers. You know, she kind of knocked them down on the table and evened them out with her hands and then put them down, and there was a perfectly even stack of papers. And she says, this is what the chiropractor does. The chiropractor puts it all back together again in a neat and even stack so that everything can flow very, very easily. So chiropractic is concerned primarily with manipulation of the spine and the adjustment of subluxations. And a subluxation is nothing more than a small movement of the vertebrae so that the impingement on the nerves can be released, allowing the nerve flow to give the proper nerve impetus to the body for health. Kind of a long way around to get there, but an interesting idea. An interesting idea, and an idea that has some precedence. In yoga, many yoga practitioners say that one of the great graces of yoga is that it helps to keep the spine flexible. And we know that in the wise woman tradition, one of the definitions of health itself is flexibility. When we look anatomically at the spine, we can see that indeed there is an enormous nervous system involvement to the spine. There's the spinal cord, which runs up and down the hollow center of the vertebrae, connecting the brain to all other regions of the body, and then very large neural networks of nerves that divide out and fan out at each one of the junctures of the vertebrae to control various areas in the body. So it's not hard to believe what chiropractors say, and that is that little subluxations occur all the time, and that a chiropractor can manipulate the spine and put everything back into working order. Where it gets to be, perhaps, I'd say, a lot of fun, is exactly how should we do that. As with most things, just saying, I'm going to find a chiropractor, or I am a chiropractor, isn't enough information, because there are many different styles and forms of chiropractic. We can have not just the three traditions represented, the scientific tradition, the heroic tradition, and the wise woman tradition, but in addition we have different styles of chiropractic. There are chiropractors known as the whole-in-one chiropractors, and they only deal with the cervical vertebrae, the vertebrae of the neck. The patient lies on a table on their back, and the chiropractor twists the head sharply to the right and or to the left, resetting the vertebrae of the neck. The sensation that one experiences when this is done can be alarming to reassuring. I know some people who would never go to a chiropractor except a hole-in-one chiropractor, and they say, why would you let anybody do anything else to your spine? And others who are terrified of chiropractic because they have had their neck adjusted and they didn't like it at all. They may also have heard the story that this particular kind of adjustment, the abrupt turning of the head in the hands of the chiropractor to one side and or the other, can actually kill you. I did spend a little bit of time checking this out to see if this was just an urban myth or if this is something that actually can happen. Well, in fact, it does actually happen, but it seems to happen not because of a chiropractic adjustment, but because of an unsuspected aneurysm. The rate at which people have been known to actually die from having a hole-in-one chiropractic adjustment is about 1 to 3 per 100,000 patients. That is the exact same rate of aneurysm in the general public. The chiropractic literature on this suggests, it could be true, we don't really know, that the person with an unsuspected aneurysm may be feeling some headache pain, especially if the aneurysm is in the brain or in the carotid. And so seek out the services of a chiropractor in order to ease the headache pain and die of the aneurysm during or right after the chiropractic session, not as a result of the chiropractic at all, but because as a result of the aneurysm, which could have happened when they ate ice cream or took a bath or anything else. So we know that cold, heat, as well as adjustments can actually cause those aneurysms to give way. The Chiropractic Association is not concerned about this and does not feel that we need to be concerned about it, but that we should mention to a chiropractor if our headaches are of a sudden onset, or to be as really specific as we can about symptoms, especially if we are going to chiropractic because we are dealing with headaches. And it is one of the great 3 reasons that people seek out chiropractic is headache as well as neck pain and back pain. So the hole-in-one chiropractor is probably one of the extremes of chiropractic. At the other end of the extremes of chiropractic is a wonderful technique called network chiropractic. And network chiropractic is so different than hole-in-one chiropractic that if you were to see them done at the same time, you would not think that they could be spoken of in the same breath or that they were in any way related at all. Whereas a hole-in-one chiropractor is going to grab hold of a person's head and twist it sharply to one side and then the other, the network chiropractor hardly touches the person at all. The network chiropractor works much more with the idea that the body needs only subtle hints in order to come into line. They're all chiropractors, and they all agree that there's subluxations. They're all chiropractors, and they're all setting everything straight in the spine so that the nervous system works well. They all agree on those basic tenets, but how they're going to get there, that's another thing altogether. I have been amazed at the results of network chiropractic. It's certainly not for everyone, but I find that women especially and especially women who are dealing with pelvic pain respond very, very strongly to network chiropractic. It is subtle enough and feels safe enough to get past the fear that certain kinds of pelvic pain bring up in us. Chiropractic in the middle would be regular chiropractic. The chiropractic that we all think of as being chiropractic, where we lay down on our stomach and the chiropractor pushes on either side of our spine, going crack, 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 crack. Or perhaps, as I learned at summer camp, you go up to someone and you give them a big bear hug and lift them off the ground, and that's a chiropractic adjustment too. I don't know if the Chiropractic Association would really feel very good about that particular chiropractic adjustment, especially being given by teenagers to other teenagers. But we've all felt it. We've all had that bear hug and felt the crack and the movement as things settled back in our backs. There's a wonderful chiropractor here in Woodstock who I enjoyed talking to for a great many years. I haven't seen him professionally or personally for over a decade now. But he was very interesting because he was willing to try out a variety of different techniques and to help me see how many different ways there are of doing chiropractic. When I first met him, he was very interested in electrical charges and how those electrical charges interfaced with chiropractic. He had had a traditional, as he put it, a traditional training as a chiropractor to manipulate the spine and to adjust subluxations. But he was experimenting with electricity and seeing if it helped him to diagnose what was going on. So this was a more scientific kind of leaning there. He soon decided that that wasn't very useful to him, and he then went on to study trigger point responses. And trigger point responses were quite fascinating, I believe, and he probably still does some trigger point work. And if you've never heard of it, I encourage you to do a little research and to see what the trigger points are. Basically, and pretty simply, he would touch various places that are considered to be trigger points for other parts of the body, so that would aid him both in diagnosing in what way he needed to do adjustments, and in actually using the trigger points themselves to help him to move the energy of the body. Starting to sound a little acupuncturistic, isn't it? But well within the realm of what he was doing was as a chiropractor in working with the trigger points. The trigger points then led him to an understanding that the spine wanted to be coherent and that all it needed was slight amount of help in doing that. So this is thinking more along the line of the network chiropractic, but still within the training that he had. And what he began to use then was wedges. And you would come in, he would do a trigger point diagnosis, and he would then lay you down and he would put wedges under your vertebrae at certain points and let your body weight press down on those wedges, and that would actually bring the vertebrae back into line. He told me that once he started working with the wedges, that he had to stop wearing a wallet in his back pocket. Because when he saw how the spine responded to the slight pressure of a wedge, we're not talking like 6-inch wedges here, we're talking wedges that are maybe a quarter to half an inch thick. They're small, hard foam wedges that he was using. He said when he saw the response of the spine to that little of a wedge, then he realized the subluxations that he was causing all the time by sitting down with a wallet in his pocket. You might want to check it out. Is there a wallet in your pocket? Is there a cell phone in your pocket? Even if you aren't aware that it's making you sit funny, it might be. And that might be, according to the chiropractic ideas, enough to cause a subluxation, which would impinge on the nerves and cause the nervous signal to not be as coherent and strong as it needs to be for optimum health. And we've all heard about nerve pain and nerve pain in the back, but that's not what we're talking about. We're not necessarily talking about an actual pain with these minor subluxations, but chiropractors work on the impingement on the nerve is not to the point where there is noticeable pain or we have actually gone because of that. And just by the by, because we're talking about the back and we're talking about pain in the back and we're talking about discs and so on, people talk about something called a slipped disc. And to me, one of the most fascinating studies that I have seen, and I read a lot of studies, took people off the street and took an image of their backs and took people who came to a pain clinic who had pain in their backs, and people who had no pain and people who had pain in their backs had about the same amount of disc slippage. In other words, people with bulging discs, people with discs slipped, walking up and down, not in any pain at all, people in pain, not able to walk, sit, or stand with the same kinds of things. So is that what's really causing it? Is the kind of surgery that is done really useful? Modern medicine is starting to say no, it's not that useful. So chiropractic is a really good choice. Remember that our 7 medicines are arranged in order of risk. And although we've gone across the Great Divide and we are in a place where it is possible to have some harm, the harm in alternative medicine is never going to be as great as the harm in pharmaceutical medicine, which is never going to be as great as the harm in high-tech medicine where we are breaking and entering. So for people with back pain, it's pretty clear. The risks and rewards of surgery are not to be compared with the huge reward that chiropractic care can bring with small risk. The downside of chiropractic care is that often insurance won't cover it, whereas insurance will cover drugs and surgery. When we're in pain, we often feel really worn down by the pain. And chiropractic care is not necessarily something that's going to make us feel better with one visit. It's not necessarily that we're going to go to the chiropractor. The chiropractor is going to go zip, zap, zoom, and we're going to walk out of there going, hooray, I walk again. My life has been transformed. I'm not saying it can't happen. It can. I have seen people in one chiropractic visit really move away from 90% of their pain. But most chiropractors will tell you that the subluxations have become habits of the spine, and that we need to retrain the spine to actually be in a more four-square way, and that needs constant repetition. Not a chiropractor, but someone working along somewhat similar lines is a woman named Ida Rolf. And you've probably seen the Rolfing logo. It will remind you a lot about the pack of paper and straightening the paper up. Because what we see is a person, and we see the person's body, and we see the 4 boxes, shall we call them, of the body. And we see originally the person in their body with the boxes not lined up. And then in the Rolfed individual, we see the boxes all lined up, one right over the other, and the person in glowing health. The person doing Rolfing is working with the fascia. And, it's hard for me sometimes to really decide whether Rolfing can safely stay here in alternative medicine or whether it should be sent to high-tech medicine, because people will say that Rolfing is breaking and entering. It is not breaking and entering in the way of actually using a knife or using a hypodermic or using an X-ray. So I think Rolfing is safe to be allowed to remain here in alternative medicine, although it is a very vigorous technique. I don't know of anyone that has been harmed by it, although many people complain that they get hurt by it. The Chiropractic Association has a long statement about possible risks of chiropractic, and they are few. Soreness, stiffness, muscle ache, that's about it. And they talk at length about how much safer chiropractic is than drugs or surgery. And that, of course, is the main point of working with the 7 medicines, is that we can clearly see that drugs and surgery truly are last results. Chiropractic doesn't have to work all the time for everybody to be better than drugs or surgery. There are very big downsides in taking drugs, even non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, and there are very big downsides to having your back operated on. I'm glad that we have drugs, and I'm glad that we have surgery, because sometimes that's the only thing that will do it. But in a great many instances, trying chiropractic care, even for as long as 12 to 18 months before deciding to do something more dramatic, more riskier before moving to another river, could be a really good choice. Have you ever had a chiropractic adjustment, Gemini?
I've not, but I have had one of those bear hugs, though.
One of those bear hugs that kind of snap you. Let's see now. Your assignment last week was to tell us about your favorite bath. Is that true?
Yes. I do, especially in the wintertime. I do like, we have a nice big jacuzzi tub in our master bath, and with all the jets, and that is one of my favorite things on a weekend evening.
Just a hunker down.
Yeah, put a little Epsom salts in it and maybe a little bit of oil. It just feels wonderful after a long week.
There you go. I was just reading one of those articles on the common myths, and one of the questions that come in was, what does Epsom salt do when you put it in the bath water? And the answer was, needlessly waste your money. In fact, they went on to say that the reason that people had gotten into using Epsom salt in their bathwater was because they'd gone to spas, and the spas had naturally dissolved minerals in them. And so people were trying to, whip up people wanting to go to spas and to get them to think that their bath was inadequate.
Oh.
And that they had to go to a mineral spa, so they told them that to make their bath curative, they had to put Epsom salt in it, but they could just go to a spa instead.
I see. So maybe I'm just wasting my money with the
You
Epsom
are.
salt. So
You
the
are,
oil I'll keep.
And apparently it ain't so good for your plumbing either.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, but what you could do, if you want to, is to take a piece of seaweed into the hot tub with you and scrub yourself with it.
Oh, okay.
It's awfully good for your skin. And if you get the right kind of seaweed, it shouldn't tear up and float and clog your jets.
Okay, very good.
Yeah. Well, that wraps it up again for our birthday week, Valentine week, here in the merry month of, the merry month of February. And we're going to be coming back and talking about osteopathy and naturopathy and herbalism before our month of February is over. So I will see you once again right here next week.
Thank you, Susan.
Green blessings.
This concludes part 34 of our series, The 7 Medicines the Wise Woman Way, with Susan Weed at Time Monk Radio.